after before that.
Okay.
Given the minutes discussion that we had just now because of the last meeting, we're gonna put off the minutes until next meeting. So we have, tonight we have library, fire, personnel administration budgets, and we also have the warrant articles and capital. Is there any special order anybody wants to go in? To facilitate in and out is the.
Do library first.
What's that?
Do library first.
Okay.
Library first.
Yes, that'd be fine. Let's do, you want to come up, Carol, and Mary?
22, everybody.
We meet again every year.
Like that.
That's good.
This will be my 24th budget.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Fantastic.
Congratulations.
And it never gets easy. It's always nerve wracking.
No, no, relax.
Always gets nerve wracking.
You don't yell that loud, do you?
No one's scary here except Paul.
I agree.
That's where. What's that?
What would you like to tell us about your budget?
I would like.
You wanna go down through it?
That we keep this pretty bare bones.
Mhm.
Probably for the last 10 years, there's many line items that haven't changed. That we kept in the same, whether it's books or programs and stuff like that, because we do have a Friends of the Library who help with keeping this budget to where it is. There certainly are things that we are out of our control, utilities and, contracted services. And, so there are some things that have gone up. I would just think that for the hours that the library is open, we're open 56 hours a week. We offer evening hours that most other departments don't offer to the public. So I think that we serve the community well, and that the budget reflects it. If anybody has any questions? No? I'm here.
Well,
Just want to thank you guys do a fantastic job. Everybody talks about how great the library is. Even visitors and things will say if they've been there for something. You guys do a great job, and obviously you're award winning too over the years. We all know.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
might be less nerve wracking.
It's intimidating. I have all these eyes on you.
Relax.
I mean, the only question I have is your expense for the building cleaning is gone up 24%, 19,500, and then cleaning supplies and everything is 1,970.
Right.
You do your own cleaning too?
No, we don't clean, but we provide the materials to clean.
So that's just labor.
That's, yes.
Okay. What company does that?
It's Here For You. And they do they do the community center and the library as well. And I reached out to them and asked them if they were going to increase or, what their suggestion was, and that's the increase.
Yeah, it was hefty increase to community building also.
They do a wonderful job and I wouldn't want to lose them. They
Agreed.
clean the library 7 days a week. That I would do, so.
Why did the fire?
Paul, 1 second.
I just wanted to point out that the increases there in your budget are the increases in every budget. The cleaning has gone up, the electricity, the propane, it's all in every budget, it's the same. So don't feel like it's only yours.
No,
Everybody's,
no, I
everybody's cleaning, electricity, heating, et cetera, has gone up as well. So,
and we realized that, when we propose the budget,
Sure.
those things are gonna go.
like you said, beyond your control. Yes. Thank you.
beyond actually closing the library and not.
Yeah, right. Don't
Really
clean it,
wanna
and
do
don't
that.
eat it, you'll be fine.
Right, or clean it.
Right.
You'd be in there.
Paul?
Yeah, can you explain why the fire alarm went up? Is it just an increase in their service or?
Yes, we actually put a new fire safety security system in this past year,
So it's fire and,
fire and security.
Okay.
And that when we changed companies, that increase went up with the new system that we have.
that's tied into the town?
Say again.
Is that tied into dispatch or the security?
It must be
Yeah,
monitoring
company
monitoring company, yes.
Did you increase security because you had an incident or? just thought it was
No,
a good thing to do?
The system that we had before was 26 years old. It was outdated, they couldn't get parts for it anymore, and it was starting to fail. The batteries were not holding a charge anymore.
Us are older and we still do good.
You did what?
Say 26 years, I
Yeah.
didn't know you were dying.
No, it didn't.
Anything further?
Oh, I worked pretty good at 26.
Good budget, good program, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good
night.
Hey,
Now I can relax.
I can go catch the rest of my grandson's basketball.
There you go.
There you go.
Enjoy. Yeah, let's do fire, Ron.
Yes. 11.
You gonna walk us through it?
Can if you want.
Yeah.
So start with the 100 wages. The on-call went up 6%. Now, that's kind of a crapshoot. I don't know how many calls we get a year. I'll use that money. I think the actual showed I went over. I find that.
Yeah, not by much, by $4,000.
Yeah. Yeah. But we did. 237 calls. For 22, we're up. I think the previous year we're 220, 221.
And they get paid a minimum of how many hours per call?
It's 2 hour for the first call. If we have back-to-back calls.
Yeah.
Then it's just accumulated. Firefighter training, I kept that the same. I believe I used. What was that?
2,500.
Oh, that was- Obviously, my wages went down, not. Full time with the town.
Is that because you're not? You're still cheap, are you still cheap?
Yes, sir.
So why did your wages go down? Well,
Well,
not the health, are you the health officer as well?
I'm still the health officer.
He's still
But
the
there could be-
officer and the
Oh,
chief.
sorry.
He gets a monthly stipend versus his hourly salary rate.
Kind of went back to the way it used to be before I became full time with the town. I get a stipend every. From 2013 to, I think.
So does that mean you're not available to? For the fire department as much, or is it just that
Just during the working hours, during the daytime, Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, because you're working out of town?
Yeah.
So, what's his name, takes care of it,
Ryan.
right?
Deputy.
Deputy.
And he's listed there, 20 hours a week. For fire, and the other half is in the administration, I believe.
In the executive. yeah.
Executive, yeah.
And that went up 26%?
Well, technically, he's only getting a 6% COLA that's being proposed across the board. But when Ron stepped down from full-time employment halfway through the year and Ryan took on more responsibilities, he got a wage adjustment at that time.
And the overtime, that's something new. For this year, it's just $1,000 there.
What's the overtime for?
That would be for Ryan, he's our level.
Ryan's an hourly employee. Right now, or previously, if he accumulated any overtime during the week, it just went into his regular payroll wages, the regular on-call wages, because it doesn't really accurately reflect him, his base compensation, so we just put a line for overtime so that where it could go.
Chief, what does he do for 20 hours a week?
He does check job sites, work in the station. He's learning to do inspections and all that. So telephone, obviously, we supplied Ryan with a cell phone. Our internet went up because now we have actually work internet.
You said they still had dial-up,
They had DSL.
We had
right?
DSL.
right, at the fire station. It's like, seriously. So it was a huge upgrade. They can actually like, download a picture on their phone now. I mean, seriously, it was that bad.
Right, and just
Yeah.
to comment on Ryan, again, Ryan's doing all the administrative work for the planning department, he's doing all the code enforcement side of things, so he's doing all the building permits. All the land use certificates, essentially, he's doing all that administrative work. Carol's no longer doing it, and I'm no longer doing it, so we needed him to be able to open a PDF on his computer.
Right.
He's going to work on the fire
in order to
station.
do So
He's working out of the fire station as opposed to the town hall.
he wants to do both, but his desktop computer is over in his office at the fire station. When he's over here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Lisa goes to the tax collection side of things. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, he works, if he has administrative stuff, out of her desk, but on the other days, he's over there.
Mike, so what I'm hearing is you moved to part-time. You have something else that you're doing. And you have your deputy who is filling in for a lot of things that you did, and that explains the changes.
Yes.
Yep. That's it.
Yep.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually be fully transparent, I was always a part-time chief,
Right,
but became full-time with the town when they transitioned me into code enforcement and health officer. That made it full-time position for those years. Okay. Next section, 370, pretty much stayed the same. 375 stayed the same. 390 for contracted services. Truck repairs, the increase there is we do need to get some new tires for the ladder truck.
Under contract services, who do you, how do you enter all your runs with software?
Well, this is the new CSI. We're still using the fire station software. But the CSI, we're in transition fully into that. And so as the runs happen, the officers are emailed all the details, you know, the times and all that. And that 4,000 is the fire department's portion of that new program.
You guys do census report?
No, we don't do EMS,
You don't do any EMS? You assist at the EMS? call?
but for manpower, but we don't provide patient care. Well, electricity went up. I think it's gone up for everybody. Propane went up a little bit. I do have a new heating system that was installed It's a Feastman boiler. And so far, it's looking like it's very efficient. It's not blowing the cover off itself like the old one did.
That's handy,
That's nice.
good feature.
Under supplies, that pretty much stayed the same. Added, well, cost of gasoline, diesel, so that all went up a little bit. And then under 700, under equipment, the usual, starting to phase our replacements on helmets. Miscellaneous safety gear stayed the same, that's consumables like the gloves and Nomex hoods. And then the boots went up a little bit. We're now buying, instead of the rubber, we're getting the leather boots that are gonna last longer, but they're more ergonomic and better for the guys. And they're actually getting that non-slip, that nice sole. It's impregnated with something that helps you walking on. When you're
I need those for my boots.
when you're fighting a fire in the winter, you may face,
You
so,
don't want to slip.
well, it's not 100%, but it's a better edge, better. If it is not falling. So overall. Well, there was one line that was taken out, deductible.
Yeah. each item will be insurance.
They had that already.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, bunker gear. Last year you got 4 sets, right?
Yep.
This year you get 4 sets.
Yep.
How many certified firefighters are there really? Because there's some guys that don't fight fire inside the building at all. Like Leo Kenny doesn't go inside.
Yeah, he's already got a new set, so,
So he got a new set?
yeah. Year before, 2 years ago, I think. We do have one new guy that's gonna be going to fire one. He's using an old set right now. So he's obviously gonna get one set and then. We're trying to do it in phases, so they're only good for 10 years.
They're good for 10 years. NFPA
Right,
allows 10 years. So in 10 years from now, or actually in 9 years, you're gonna order 8 more sets. We're gonna need 4 right here.
and we try to have, everybody has 2 sets, so if they go to a fire. You just can't clean and. Dry them immediately, but you get another call, so everybody has. Almost everybody has a backup set, so since. And we did, not last year, year before. Remember a few years ago, I got the extractor to properly clean the gear.
Yeah.
So 2 years. Second year I've had it, we actually have the dryer now. NFPA compliant dryer cabinet. For that, we can also do fire hose in it also, but so we're sitting pretty good there. So bottom line is down about $8,400 from last year. Roughly.
You don't need any more money in your radio line?
No, we did. We just took we finally got the radios that we ordered probably 9 months ago.
Yeah, we got a grant for that this year. We got $50,000.
$50,000.
Yeah, so we've got 12 new radios.
So each guy has their own radio assigned to them now?
Yep, well, they have had, but they're 2006 vintage. They got another grant in October of 2006. And so we spent all of that 50,000 on 12 radios.
Well, and the PD got 3 radios as well.
Oh, that's right, they got 3 mobile.
They got 3 mobile, but the fire department got 12.
Looks like an iPhone.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is the old Motorola. brand.
Sarah. Sarah. These are awesome.
But they've been durable.
Get rid of the increased commercial and residential development. How is that affecting your call volume? Here.
Well, we normally are around 195 to as high as 234.7 this year. A lot of it's motor vehicle accidents, seal alarms, fire alarm activations, right, Herb?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, again.
But
That's your training.
what's that?
That's good for your training, right?
Well, it is. It refreshes us. It refreshes, we're working our pre-plans and see.
You guys have a great attitude when you come, but things I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, the crew does awesome.
Yeah.
I've got a real good team.
If you have too many, they start to charge you.
Yeah, well, they've been
Well,
told.
the Mountain Club used to have that honor many years ago.
Oh, because of the, remember, it was the radios.
Yeah,
Dust, the radios, it
Yeah.
would go off all the time.
And
Fortunately, it's fixed.
so just so you're aware, I do have, I think it's three guys that are from my department are also on Woodstock. And there's also one that is a member of Camden Thornton also because he lives down in Thornton. And he responds here to our calls.
He works in town, correct?
He
Lives
works
down
in
there,
town,
works here,
so
yeah.
he gets the
Responds
calls
there.
when he's here, but if Camden Thornton gets a call, he goes to a Camden Thornton call if he's home. So there's quite a desire for these guys to
Be active.
be active,
Yeah.
train and learn more things. I think I have a decent budget. And I think they do an awesome job with what we
They do.
give them,
they do.
and the town's growing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, it's grown.
It's a hard budget to predict too, because like you said, you never know how many calls you're gonna get.
Right,
And if we get a winter that with not many storms, you might be down on the vehicle calls, but
Right.
lately, I mean, they've just been with the ice storms we got and another one coming. It's,
oh, yeah.
Well, you also all think these hotels aren't occupied yet,
No.
we
Yeah,
got that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not occupied yet, we
Oh,
got
yeah.
everything coming in down the road, it's not,
Right.
nothing started, so once they're occupied, I imagine our call volume will increase.
Do you have any plans on assisting EMS? Like for difficulty breathing, heart attacks, cardiac arrest, automatic response?
That would be something I'd have to work with the EMS chief on.
that's different too, because it's not a Lincoln, or the
Yeah,
Linwood ambulance is not owned and operated by the town of Lincoln. They're their own
Right,
entity.
but.
So,
Right.
I do
But
have.
it's still nice to have 4 people in a cardiac arrest and 2.
Yeah, well, they're all certified with CPR, first
Yeah,
aid
yeah.
and all that, but I do have one. Lauren Bennett has taken an EMT basic course. So I would imagine he would probably join Linwood and still do us, so we'll have a trained person on a call that. We can all do the CPR and everything, but
we had a cardiac arrest in the lakes last year and the fire department responded, so I know you guys.
oh, that one had to extricate him out of the stairwell, right?
Yeah, so, but your guys were there, fast.
No, they
Quick.
do an awesome job.
That's not something you respond to normally, correct?
No, the Linwood would have a stone for manpower.
Is that something we're thinking about in the future, maybe having you guys build up your run volume?
Well, I don't think we can. We're kind of stretched just handling the fire stuff, and we don't even have the insurance to cover ourselves to start doing the EMS thing. We'd have to go through. Well, this.
I know, I'm just asking you.
Well, I think. Best course for us right now is to support Linwood anywhere we can, because I don't think there's no way we could do the EMS portion. For what we're paying. I believe they went up a little bit this year on their donate, so
Right.
that we're doing yet.
West, yeah.
Because like as well as I do, we couldn't do EMS for.
Couldn't touch it. Couldn't touch it.
I mean, I'm paying my EMTAs right now $21.
Yeah.
Paramedics, I'm paying just 24. So,
No, and Dave Talbert and his crew, they do an outstanding job. It's getting a lot tougher for them to. Manage not only the personnel, but with the cost of doing business as EMS service, and you've got to get. Pretty aggressive with your shopping for supplies and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of got away from the fire thing here, didn't we? I don't know, does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, if you're gonna run a fire department on 200,000, is that what I'm saying? Good idea.
Okay.
That's what I always said.
It's pretty
200 whatever thousand, we've got fire coverage for the
Yeah.
whole year.
Well, and it's gone up over the years,
Yeah.
but so is the cost of living,
Yeah.
and, you know.
Everything else.
The towns were on, I think,
Yeah.
growing a lot.
It's not much. Ray?
Thank you. Hi, Ron, Ray here.
Right?
A minor kind of non-controversial topic. Regarding the fire department. I think we're very quickly coming to a position where we could never get smaller. And I would like to throw out an idea that we consider combining the Woodstock and Lincoln Fire Department. I put Woodstock first so that they wouldn't think they're being second fiddle. In terms of location, I'd like to suggest would go next to the ambulance and probably in that old
Oh,
grocery
the-
store that used to be there.
Used to be the old IGA.
Right, the old IGA, right.
No intentions of ever selling that, so that isn't gonna happen.
Well, we could save some money. We could combine things. We could have faster responses.
That's a great new idea. That you've been talking about for about, what, 10, 12 years now?
Been longer than that.
Yeah.
It was actually brought up, it was brought up this year. And they came to the board of selectmen meeting and and Woodstock decided they didn't want to,
Yeah.
and Lincoln, I believe, both were there. And they decided that they didn't want to do it at this time.
Yeah.
That was discussed this year.
Well, and I think I had spoken in one meeting there, we're slowly. With sharing personnel,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think. Be patient because,
The chiefs we have, the communication is fantastic.
well,
Been a long time.
well, I know, but,
It's
But
getting
it-
closer.
but with what's
And
going
look, we're
on in
throwing
both
lots
communities
back
as
towards
far
the
as
town line, so That's good.
places for families to
Seriously.
live.
Well, one second, Tammy.
There's gonna come a time where we're not gonna get volunteers.
Right.
So-
You're looking at a, what? $18 million police and fire station, it would be a great time to consider. Doing that, I think, I agree with Ray. I mean, if you're looking at an $18 million. Fire and police station, what better time to consolidate two towns that geographically are within the stone's throw of each other?
We're not looking at an $18 million building
Yeah.
anymore, so we'll talk about that in the next budget.
No.
Pare it down a little bit.
Pare it down a little bit.
Oh, we're 13 now.
Okay, anything further for Ron?
I'd rather spend that 18 million on paying for some full-time people or whatever, paying wages.
That's an expensive road to go down though.
yeah.
Well, but so is 18 million for.
And my budget's only 1.3, and that's 8 full-time.
But it's still 1.3 versus 200,000.
Yeah.
Plus operating costs, and I have double the apparatus, I have 9 pieces of apparatus.
Does that include your capital too?
And we do about 1,000 calls a year.
That's ambulance and
Fire, we do everything.
no, without the revenue portion, your budget would be higher, right?
We only get 40% of every, and the town takes 60%, puts it in the general fund. So they make money, we're the only department that has revenue.
There will come a day.
Ray, it's not a bad idea to keep reminding everybody of that. Doesn't go anywhere quickly, but it's always. Nothing wrong with bringing it up.
I think
Thank
you do a nice job, Ron.
Thanks.
Yeah, you did.
Yes,
Yeah, the
thank
guys
you.
did.
Thank you all.
Good job.
Appreciate
You're
the
welcome.
support.
Have a good
Yep.
night.
You too.
Take care.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome. You up next?
Personnel.
Personnel, number 5.
That's me.
Thank you.
Hey.
All right, personnel.
So you're gonna see the biggest increase, or one of the biggest increases, is our non-union health insurance line. That we are part of Health Trust, is the large pool we're in for health insurance. That was our percentage this year, is a 17.9. Unfortunately, that is what it is, unless we start looking at, an alternative provider. With that said, when, Health Trust gave us support this year, obviously an 18% jump was kind of a large pill to swallow. We looked into what other communities were offering, and out of the 52 communities that responded, Lincoln was the only community out of those 52 that didn't cover any dependent or spouse care. So if we were going to go down the avenue of getting a less rich plan per se, one with a higher deductible, or a plan that was more cost effective for the community, I think we would also have to look into offering spouse independent care. And I don't really know how much money we would save, if any. Probably have to spend more money in that end. So
Absolutely.
we decided, at least for this fiscal year, to stay with Health Trust and the single person plan, and then maybe explore options in the future. I think it's important that we get the employees' perspective of whether they would like a Cadillac plan, but only have a single person plan, or whether they would like a higher deductible, less rich, plan, but have their spouses and dependents covered. So the personnel policy and those kind of things are on my agenda for this year to look into.
It seems like it would make sense to look into a plan that offers a more than single person plan. That might allow the town to be able to get better employees or more applying for jobs. Because Lincoln is one of the only ones in the state that doesn't have that type of offering. I mean, why would you want to change?
It doesn't put us at an advantage. I
Right.
will agree with that.
How many employees is this for?
That's for I want to say 16, but I think it's give or take,
Give or take.
Yeah.
There are still people who are on family plans from.
So yes,
Grandfather,
correct. There was a change. I don't remember the exact year, but I would say over a decade ago, there was a change for where all employees were offered the family plan, and there was a change made in the personnel policy. I don't know what year or date it was, but then it transitioned to a single person plan only.
Things like
Be an employee that the spouse may have insurance, is there?
We do a opt-out, a health insurance opt-out payment, a stipend. We increased that this year to $4,000 from 2,
except for yours.
except for mine.
You know what percentage of the plans that are in Health Trust? The percentage of communities that also offer Health Trust and a family independent care?
I would say, I don't know that exact number off the top of my head, but we asked the communities to fill out what percentages their employees were paying, if they were offering dependent care or whatnot. I don't know how many of them are currently on Health Trust. We could ask that question.
And actually, I'm thinking about it, you may have answered that again. You said we're the only one.
Out of the 52 that responded to my request that does not offer spouse or dependent care.
And that was Health Trust and whatever they had.
And whatever they had, whether it was, Independent Anthem or Harvard
Yeah.
Pilgrim or something through a brokerage, so.
I think Paul makes a good point, that that's the first time in my little travels that I've heard of a municipality or school district or county that only offers a single plan. And the point he makes about possibly attracting employees with that kind of benefit, could actually save the town money in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, it doesn't work to our advantage. It's definitely, when you have a family and you're used to a family plan coming in, to think that 90% of your paycheck each week could be towards your health insurance. They may be looking down a different avenue.
Well, the one-
And a lot of those family plans have very high deductible. They're
Correct.
unusable. 7,000, 8,000.
It's not necessarily.
Mine's 10.
Yours is 10.
Well, and I know a
So
lot of
it's a good
communities.
example, right?
Really usable only if you have an emergency.
Yeah.
Only if you have-
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Well, and I think a lot of communities are moving towards the higher deductible plan, but then they're also putting money into a health reimbursement account or a health saving account for their employees. So they'll split the deductible, they'll pay the first 1,000 and the employee's responsible for the remaining 1,000 if it's a $2,000 deductible or some sort of combination to try to help the employees offset because insurance costs are rising for the employer and the employee. So
But they wouldn't,
trying to be creative.
they might need a higher incoming wage because they're only offered a single person plan versus someone who's offered a family plan and says, okay, now I don't have to have as much. And then because my family's covered.
Because my family's covered, correct, or my percentage that I'm contributing is lower than what I was getting at my previous employer or something. It really is, it's really a hard nut to crack, I guess, I don't know. Like I said, I would like to have the employees' input on whether they like health trust and they like having the Cadillac plan, or would they move to a plan with a higher deductible or something like that to be able to include their spouses, because nobody wants to navigate one health insurance plan, never mind two.
So
What's
is that something that the selectmen are looking at?
It's something that we talked about during this, during this budget cycle, when we renew in July is our renewal date, so we talked about it then, but like I said, we felt like this was best to stay with health trust for at least this year.
What is the deductible now? Our employees, the town employees.
I think it's $1,000.
Yeah, that's good. I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty good.
it's,
Yes.
yeah, is it good? Yeah.
Yeah, and it, zero,
Yeah.
it's zero cost to them, so, the union employees are different, the union employees. Per their CBA, pay a percentage of their health insurance costs, and they're not on health trust, they're on a union.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not arguing that we should raise the deductible so much as that they might prefer to stay with what they got rather than having a huge deductible on a family plan that they can't use except in emergency, because you could probably hear that type of plan for a lower cost than a low deductible individual. So.
Okay.
And then health and dental insurance for the union went up slightly, but obviously not as significantly. And then going down life and disability, that's based on wages, so you see a increase for that, as well as disability and the dental plan for the non-union employees. Well, that's not based on wages. That's
Has the union contract been settled?
no.
So these numbers here are,
Health insurance wise, that is not on the table for negotiation.
so
That's what these aren't going to change.
all right.
Social Security, that's based on wages, Medicare, also based on wages. Retirement, went down for once. Historically, retirement always goes up and up and up, but next year will be, in 23 will be the first year, starting in July, the health insurance, the employer contribution goes down slightly, so we'll get 6 months of the reduced rate this year, and then next year we'll get a full 12 months of the reduced rate. For the non-public safety employees, for the group 1 employees, it's not very significant, it's about 0.5%. But for police and fire, it's about 2% apiece, and they're at 30%, so that's a significant cost savings. So we'll see half of it this year, but we'll see the big chunk next year in 24. So
Who on fire is group 2?
nobody's in group 2, it's all group 1.
Oh, you said
I mean,
police and fire.
Well, police is group 2, I guess I just kind of bulk them together because they're both group 2.
First responders, yeah.
And then workman's comp, unemployment, and the education for the union contract personnel policy is in there, that hasn't changed, so.
That union contract, is that item not under negotiation?
The formal education, that's always been in the town's personnel policy as well as the CBA agreement, but it is not an item for discussion.
Is there a certain classification of the position that falls into the workers' compensation? Kind of employee that might be affected where workers' comp kicks in?
So we are with Primex, which is for our workman's compensation, and essentially, no, any full-time, part-time, volunteer. If you are affiliated with the town of Lincoln, as a volunteer, on-call, part-time or full-time, you're all covered if you're technically on the town side.
So in the experience of the town, it's like maybe the highway group or the police group or the fire group, they don't disproportionately be affected by workers' comp.
No, we're all under the same umbrella.
But I think the point he's making is you have high risk employees, you have low risk employees. We're not all paying the high risk amount, it's
Correct.
being averaged out. I think that's kind of what you were.
They do. So on an annual basis, we have to supply Primex with everybody's annual wage. And then what category they fall in, whether they fall into public works or they're a driver or they're a police officer or they're an admin. And we categorize them and then they have a calculation that calculates the risk for each employee and what that should cost.
So office would be a lower risk versus someone else, like a police
Yeah.
officer.
Yeah, the highest, actually, the highest rated ones are the drivers.
Yeah.
Because they're,
More opportunity.
yeah, more opportunity right there behind the wheel, so. So that's personnel.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything further?
No, I mean, you will, see that the personnel is our highest surplus, the $250,000, but that's, as we spoke before. Was due to the vacancies we had this year, so we will most likely not see that next year unless we have a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
We're doing the warrant now, is that correct? No.
Okay.
Doing the warrant now?
Yes, now leave that up, select one. You like to do capital reserve, or would you like to do warrants first?
It wasn't, it wasn't,
No,
it was
not on.
maybe it was left on by accident.
Yeah,
It was on the schedule for tonight, but it was not put on the agenda.
Oh.
but that was by me.
I didn't get it, so I couldn't look at it, so.
What's that? You didn't get one.
I didn't see it, I mean, I might have gotten it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, and we said we were gonna do that because they were gonna meet the 17th and we were gonna have it on the 24th.
Yeah.
My eyes popped open this morning and I realized I got the agenda out a day early, but I didn't have those if you wanted. But we're covered because we can discuss anything that we need to come before. Okay.
I think we should do the capital reserves first,
Capital reserves first, okay, fine.
seeing a
Everybody should have that.
majority of the committee is here.
I prepared to talk about it, so.
So you're gonna see capital reserve wise that we did increase the amount that we're putting into the capital reserve. Just grabbing the capital reserve spreadsheet, by 120 something, $27,000. The CIP committee met over the summer and went through all of our projected projects and these were the recommendations that we brought forward to the board and the budget committee based on the projects that we have projected for the future. I did do a little bit of math.
Need a laptop.
I know. I'm a paper gal, just like you.
No,
Just for some future reference, just so you know, so I looked at our capital reserves and I looked at what we are projected to spend in the next 3 years, over the next 3 years. And on the projects that we have on the capital improvement plan right now, there are 10 projects that are scheduled to be completed in the next 3 years. We all know that if a vehicle can last a little bit longer, we'll push it out a year, or if something breaks down and we gotta buy it, then it moves up a year. But These are projected over the next 3 years. So from 2024 to 2026, we have 3.6, let's call it 3.6, it's $3.59 million worth of projects that need to be completed. We currently have 1.5 in the bank for those projects. So we feel that, or I guess I'm speaking for myself, not for the CIP committee. I feel that we need to continue to fund these, and we need to continue to fund these robustly as our savings account to be able to actually purchase with these things with cash. I think we're in a predicament right now, as you'll see when we go over the next budget, where we're bonding some things, or we're trying to be creative, whether it's with undesignated fund balance or just through taxation to pay for some of these projects. So it's my personal opinion that it's extremely important to fund your capital reserves adequately to, be able to pay for things in cash when the interest rates are high, and to have the flexibility to bond things when interest rates are low. So, that is my spiel on capital improvement projects, but
So there's a difference between what was brought to the capital improvements committee
no,
to be considered versus what you're saying here.
this is what your recommendation is. This is what we're bringing forward tonight. What the CIP committee's recommendation was is exactly what we're bringing tonight.
All right. I didn't have any of that, so I didn't
Yeah, no,
check.
nothing's changed from the summer.
The only change is the fire truck.
The only change is the fire truck under a special warrant article, but that's wouldn't be included with what the CIP committee is proposing.
So then I need to ask, how did the fire truck get to such an urgent need so fast?
Let's do that a little.
Yeah.
A little.
Isn't that part of the CIP?
Only what you had.
Fire truck and equipment. Okay, I just asked a question here. It's
No,
part of
it's,
the CIP,
it's
so
it's
I-
okay, it's okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, we're putting money in the truck capital reserve, absolutely, but we're not just putting money in for a single vehicle. We're putting in for, how many vehicles do we have on the replacement schedule? We have
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles on the replacement
But
schedule.
my question is, the money that's being put forward is not enough to buy the vehicle you need to buy this year.
Correct.
So how is it, was that just? How did it get to be so needy right this year? Because capital improvement should have been, okay, we need this truck. And 2023, and therefore we need. I would have thought capital improvement committee would have met and said, hey, look, Ron or somebody would have said, look, we need to budget for this come in 2023.
Well,
And
so.
so now we're looking.
Okay, hold on, let's, let this go conversationally, but raise your hand.
I'm just asking the
I know
question.
you're asking a question, everybody, wait, hold on.
Question or not?
1 second. 1 second, I haven't used that yet this year.
Oh,
Is-
we can make that happen.
Please raise your hand, when someone's speaking and you would like to speak next, okay? That's all I was getting at, but
Yeah.
continue, Paul, you had the floor.
No, I'm just trying to figure out how we got here, because it seems like, like you're saying, there's other projects that are coming in, if we haven't. If the town hasn't, through the process of the CIP. Said, look, we need to put more money into these things so we can get them this year. So we're not in a position where we're having to either bond or use. Available surplus to do that, and that's the whole process behind the CIP is that you. Obviously, you know that, I mean, your budget value of money, so when you get to 2023. It's there and your first line attack vehicles is budgeted for and it's been appropriated for through the CIP process.
Sure.
It seems like that's not what's happening here, or there's some other projects that you're talking about as well. That may need to do that.
Well, I think it's. Can I respond to that question? I think it's multi-factored. I think that, I can only speak to the 12 months that I've been here. I don't know how the
That's a
CIP.
problem.
No, it's not about.
No.
I can only speak to the 12 months that I've been here, and I think before I came on board, I can't speak to how the capital reserves were funded and how the amount that was put into each capital reserve fund was determined. I can't speak to that. Hold on, let me continue. That's one factor. I don't know how leading up to here we got to this. The second factor is post-COVID, the equipment prices have gone up. So a $400,000 or $500,000 fire truck is now $750,000, $800,000. So we're automatically 50% behind.
Right.
In addition to that, we've been told that a build out for a fire truck is going to be upwards of 2 years. This fire truck is not planned to be purchased until 2025, but we need to sign into an agreement with the vendor in 2023
With the
to
money.
be able to procure that vehicle in 2025. And municipal budget law says we can't sign a contract unless, one, we have bond authority to do so, or two, we have that cash in the bank. So that's why it became such a time-sensitive issue, is if we want this truck in 2025, we gotta sign into a contract in 2023. And that means we would have had to put $450,000 into that line in the summertime to be able to account for that. And I don't think we were quite ready to do that at that point. So I think it is multi-factored.
Okay, Brent?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. Yeah. I first of all, I think you should be responsible for the last 25 years. Every decision that's ever been made.
I'll second that.
But, seriously, I think the last couple of years, experiencing like 10+ years of almost no inflation. Has thrown a lot of people's budgets out of whack. And it should be perfectly natural that in this particular.
Where you been living?
Where have I been living in the United States of America?
You haven't had any inflation at all?
It's been less than 1% for the last 10 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
easily.
so I think we should expect some fluctuations from, no matter how well you plan. And I have to admit, I was guilty of the same thing in the budgets I do for the properties that last year I got caught by surprise by some of the rises in prices. Nobody expected this level of inflation. So I think, well, I mean, I think it's just natural to assume we're going to have to adjust to that.
And to your point, Paul, I think we've discussed that this year, before the CIP process begins, we're gonna go to all the department heads and say, update all your numbers. Let's have real numbers. Let's not have make-believe numbers that you put in the CIP 5, 6, 7 a decade ago, because they're not gonna add up. And we need to have a true representation of how much money we need to start forecasting for over the next decade.
Well, I know you're right. I know you're saying you weren't privy to all stuff that happened prior to you, but. All of a sudden, we've got this urgent need for this, the budget this money for this fire truck, and it never came before that I'm aware of, it never. Came that way to the CIP committee. So, I mean, they didn't even have a chance to really kind of take a look at this thing, and all of a sudden, here we are. So there's obviously been some, I'm not trying to lay a blame game, I'm just saying. You know, you have to be able to look to the future and see what your needs are and plan for those. And that's what, if you're not doing that, then it goes against what the CIP is. You might as well not have CIP.
Oh, and I don't
I
just.
mean, if you're gonna bond or you're gonna use unfunded surplus, everything you need, then eventually you're gonna run out. And that's why, you know, if you're taking from one project to fund another, because you all of a sudden have that need, that project that you're taking it from in the CIP is not getting funded, so then the next year, so it just snowballs itself.
I don't disagree that it's a perpetual cycle, but that's why I think it's extremely important that we adequately fund these capital reserves and not nickel and dime, $10,000 here or $2,000 here, taking them off, because that's what happens. We have 107 projects on our CIP program. That is a lot of projects.
I understand.
And if we're only putting $1 million in, that's $10,000 per project, right?
Wow.
So, or $100,000 per project, but. No, it's
No,
$10,000.
It's a little less.
Sorry, but
I like your
we're
math better.
getting nowhere. We're getting nowhere. And if we're always robbing Peter to pay Paul because one project takes priority that year or one project happens, then we're never truly adequately
That's-
funding it. And that's just my thing. My whole idea of using undesignated fund balance this year, and we'll get into it further, is in any sort of basic financial accounting class or basic financial for your home or whatnot, if you have a surplus in your operating budget, in your home budget, what do? You invest that surplus, right? You invest it in your infrastructure, in your house, you invest it in savings accounts, you invest it in stocks and bonds. That's what we're doing by putting our money, our surplus, into a capital reserve, because we'll be able to make money for the next 2 years on the $450,000 being in a capital reserve. We're putting it into our savings account. We're investing it into our infrastructure. We're investing it into actual investments.
But you're missing the point.
Okay, 1 second, I'm sorry, Paul, OJ had his hand up.
Yeah, just to
That's board
We need to
place
break-
it, public comment?
We can accept public comment within
Okay, just ask.
the meeting.
Minnie did a great job explaining some of what led up to this point. But I think it's important to know that this was on the CIP target date of 2025. All right, the fact that we have to order it or get approval 2 years early so we can order it and get it by 2025. It is something I wasn't anticipating. Number two, the budget amount in the CIP is 650. We know it's gonna cost 750 plus, so we're missing 100,000 there. But the other thing is, even on the CIP, come 2025 on this CIP, we're short $215,000 of money in that account, so we couldn't have bought it with cash in 2025 if we could wait till then to even order it. So between the $100,000 increase and the $215,000 that was not put in CIP, knowing that we needed it, we're $315,000 short right now. So you know, there's a various number of factors that led up to it. Last year's CIP, again, Karina said we're up $100,000 over last year, over what was put in. Part of that comes because last year's CIP, the CIP for years, since I was on it back in 2012, I think we started, or 11, putting a target for the CIP. And it's sort of funky the way this spreadsheet is, because as we bonded some things and took them out of CIP, we as a CIP committee, and I was on it back then, didn't say, oh, good, we're gonna bond that, now we got whatever, $100,000 of extra money, we don't have to put towards that project, so put it towards something else. We didn't do that. We said we're gonna take these bond payments and include them in that limit that comes up to the, I think it's 3% per year interest. So last year, we were 99 something, call it $100,000 below that target. So when she says we're up 100,000, we were down 100,000 below the target last year, and even this year, where this amount that, you know, again, the selectmen just approved with the CIP committee, but with 36, I think, $1,000 below
36,000 below our
that
target.
target. Now, if we're all gonna be serious and wanna do this, we can put $36,000 more towards this project or any other project, and we're still gonna be at or below the target.
So if I may, and maybe the 3% is a different definition, OJ, is just to listen to see if I have this right. Didn't we have every year a 3% inflationary addition?
Yes,
Why did we stop that?
no, we didn't,
We didn't?
we didn't.
I thought
No,
that,
it's still projected, but
It's a
what the
target.
CIP committee has recommended last year was under that.
Well, I think one of the things that you're not hearing. here-
wait, hold on a second.
We did make up the, last year we were under target, we did make it up this year,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
Minus
We're back-
36K.
we're back on target.
One of the
We're
things-
36K
one of the
under.
things you're-
Paul,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you have to wait.
And, I just heard we had no inflation for 10 years, so we're overspending for 10 years, 3% cap.
Well,
Just-
I don't, hold on, Brent, please, is this still, I still kind of have this. That's what I mean, is we had 3% that we were putting in there and were we hitting target each year?
No,
Okay, and so I was gonna ask, because you said 3.5 million, that's due that's gonna be a debt in how many years? In the next?
so from 2023 to 2026, we have $3.59 million that we're projected to spend. That's the total project cost, 3.9.
Okay.
Right now, our balance is 1.5, so that means we have to make up $2 million in 2.5 years.
Okay, and for these projects added over the last year or two?
No, most of them were on, I don't think we proposed any, maybe we proposed one new project this year, but most of them was just funding the current accounts.
Okay, so it appears that we've always underfunded CIP.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would say from 2020, I look back, in 2020, you put 1,068,000, in 2021, you put 1,055,000. Last year, we put 1,095,000. And so that has been under the target
Last few years.
in the last few years.
Jim, your hand up. Okay.
Actually, Paul, here's the way this works, is actually generally is you put your hand up, whoever hasn't spoken yet goes before the person that has spoken yet.
So,
But
we got to
I'm just trying to keep it-
so we all could be reading off the same sheet, that'd be good. Because up till this meeting, Mike, you've let everybody talk the way they want to talk, so, you know.
Okay, so let me address that, 1 second,
Sure.
is because
Please do.
a couple of, because I have two people that are new, that have been in formal meetings, public meetings, because I notice you look at me when you want to address. The way it's supposed to be is you're supposed to address the chair. Like 2 years ago, I went into it and we had conversational practice here, and I said, is everybody okay with that? And everybody said, yeah, let's do it this way. So we can do it. All I'm trying to do is keep it from talking over each other. But the way it is if somebody hasn't, and if somebody hasn't spoken yet, your hand can go up 4 times, but if they haven't spoken yet, they're gonna go first. Okay, so that's kind of the way we're running it, all right? Just don't talk over top of each other, that's all. Wayne,
If what we're saying is that we have consistently been slightly underfunding capital reserves. What does the state of New Hampshire law require us to have for capital reserves? Is there anything there that we are not complying?
No, the state of New Hampshire does not require a community to have a capital improvements plan or capital reserve funds. So Lincoln in itself is a step ahead because it does have one, and it has a very robust one with 107 projects and millions of dollars in the bank. But I think that it's in, again, my opinion as one member of the CIP committee, that we need to target our focus on accomplishing some of these projects and getting them off the list. Some of them are ongoing, will always be on the list, right? It's my opinion that we have underfunded them, and that's why we're in some of the predicaments we're in.
Paul,
What I was gonna say earlier was. This is kind of odd hearing this because for the years that I've been on the CIP committee. We've interviewed and brought forth all of the department heads. Marina and all the department heads, fire, police. You name it. So they come in, they say, we look at the CIP. What they've requested. And some of it's the same request from year to year. You just look at the sheet and you go down through it. There are certain sheets that they can fill out if there's a new request or if they want to change the request of the amount. So. It's the department heads that the CIP committee talks to and says. Do you really need this year, or can it go out another couple of years? Even some of the department heads said, you know, we might not need this year. We can kind of do away with that. And we can take that money and put it somewhere else. So when you talk about hitting the goal. The goal is an imaginary line that moves depending upon the request of the department heads and the town manager.
Right.
So for me to hear that we're underfunding kind of doesn't make any sense, because the opportunity for the department heads and the town manager and the board of selectmen representative who's there is to say, hey, look, we got this thing coming up. And I'll use the fire truck, for example, that's coming up, and God, we're gonna have to order it 2 years from now, and we're gonna have to order it now because it's gonna be 2 years from now, so we're gonna have to put more money into that. Then you look at whether you're gonna bond it or whether you're gonna put it in the CIP. So that process is ongoing through the whole thing, so. I don't get this, we all of a sudden need to spend unspent funds surplus because. We need this fire truck now. Had we put that money in and known it. We could have used that unexpended surplus for something else. The whole process is about communication. It's about knowing what you need for the future. And I know some of these things that have belabored it, like COVID and shortage of materials and longer lead times and things like that. Those do take a toll on it. But I mean, it is. The process works when everybody contributes to it and buys onto it. And that's basically what I've been part of with the CIP for the years that I've been on, is that everybody collaborates and they say, yeah, you know, we don't need this. We can kind of put that money over here. And we don't worry about what the bottom line total is. It can be up, it can be down. You know, but it's all about what you really need. It's not about where the final number is. And the end probably kind of sort of works out that way, but through that process, all we're talking about is what do you need? Do you really need to have this? I mean, I can give you examples after examples of things that we've not bought because we didn't need them. Or they could have been put off for another couple of years or things like that, so.
City,
But I think in this case, I think it's unfair, because in this case, you didn't know going into the CIP negotiations that you were going to have this requirement, that you had to have that money in place this year to have a fire truck in 2025. And so I think you have to look, things change and you have to be flexible. You have to change when something like that happens. So you can't say, you know, this, nothing's ever, or many cases, things aren't black and white. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct.
That was not known at the time that you were doing this in CIP.
Yeah, we didn't understand that the lead time was gonna be.
Yeah, and that's $500,000 right there. So, you know,
Jim,
I mean, I think there are two different animals here. There is the sudden need for the fire truck, and now, you know, there's the concern, I'll say, that
that's where I was.
that the
going,
CIP
two
is
separate things.
underfunded.
two separate things, yeah,
So, I mean,
two
but
totally
Yeah,
separate.
I think,
things.
I agree with Paul. CIP committee, you know, we gave the department heads the power to tell us what they need. We
And
didn't
I hear
say,
you, and
we didn't say you spend
said,
100,000 if you really, you know what I mean? We didn't strong on them.
and I don't think, well, I'm just, again. I don't think that this happened just while you were there. It
I'm
sounds
not saying
like,
you're blaming, I'm not saying you're blaming me.
Oh, you're right.
Not at all.
but we're not blaming anybody. No, I'm thinking that this has been sort of an undercurrent in the CIP for many, many years. And that now is coming to like, hey, we're not really, we're not raising taxes much because of it and everything, but we're not really hitting our target and having the money there. So that, I think it's been going on for quite a while, not just in the last year or two.
I would agree. What's the matter?
Right.
So we're gonna get full.
So I think what, I don't think they're arguing about the bottom line, and Karina's argument is about having a sufficient top line. And then you can cover the bottom line later on and take advantage of buying opportunities and opportunities not to finance something, for example. So if you have a sufficient top line, whether you use it or not, you have some money that layer there that allows you to make better decisions and capitalize on better opportunities. I think that's what you're kind of getting at.
I don't think there's anything that resembles a perfect CIP plan, you know, except for Marine. And, you know, when new information comes forward and presented to the public, to the selectmen, or to the budget committee, you know, then you adjust. And one thing that I found rather encouraging for like a town of Lincoln is with a healthy fund balance, you can deal with some of these problems when they come up. The other thing, the fact that cash has come into the equation in terms of the commitment, that changes again. You know, so, you know, I think we should probably pull back a little bit and not get so concerned about everything fitting into these little blocks 10 years from now, because it's not going to happen. But we should be responsible when the town manager, you know, can project out that we need to fund this at a higher level. We should consider that, and we should also equate that to what does that really do to the tax rate. You know, it's my understanding that you know, I think it was 10 cents on the tax rate equates to $1 million. So if we're looking at an increase of $120,000 in the CIP, we're talking about a theoretical 10-cent increase in the tax rate. Now, is that insignificant? Well, it's all proportional to who thinks 10 cents is a lot of money. But with the healthy fund balance, and with the fact that a budget is not 100% spent, you know, this increase, which is being told to us, makes sense. And, you know, it's not going to have a significant impact on a homeowner as we go forward. But
but it's going to address the issue of catching up in the capital reserve. Well, I mean, I think that the point here is that you really need, and nobody has that crystal ball, I realize that. But I think we really need to look at where you're headed down the road all the time. I mean, it has to be, it can't just be a once a year meeting at a CIP time. It's gotta be something that you look at throughout the whole year. To watch and make sure that there's not another $500,000 because something just jumped up. But, you know, your point about 10 cents per thousand, I mean, you know, it's probably not a lot of money for someone that's got a $200,000 or $300,000 house, but for people who have $1.5 million house or a business that's worth 30, 40, $50 million, it's a lot. Granted, they might just pass that on, but I mean, you know, so all things are relevant in that regard. Taking all that away, to me, it just makes more sense to say, we really need to make this CIP not about looking harder more often at what the town's needs are. And to me, that's where sometimes we fall a little short, because I'd be the first one to say, I fancy to say, oh, you don't need this, okay,
Oh, you don't.
we'll take it off. You've seen me do that. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but you do it at the behest of the department heads, and you look at them. They're the ones that are giving you the information at the CIP, as well as the town manager sitting there saying, it wasn't always Karina. I realize this came on this year, but I mean, you know, it needs to be on a more regular basis, I think, between the town manager and the board of selectmen and the, you know, the department head to be able to really seriously look at these things on a more regular basis than just, I don't know how often it's looked at. Maybe it needs to be done more than that.
Well, I mean, the CIP committee sets their own meetings, am I not correct?
We don't want to be more, you,
Well, there are communities that their CIP committee meets once a month versus every week in August, you know, where they touch base with each other, they look at their reserve balances and they look at, you know, projections and projects that year. And, you know, so I don't disagree that there could be more done. And I don't mean to put blame on the CIP committee, you know, I'm not just, no, not on you either. I'm just saying I have a different perspective. I'm new. I have different ideas. I've come from two other communities that both had CIPs that operated differently than Lincoln. I mean, there is no cookie cutter way of doing things. I'm just pointing out the fact that I think the increase that we have this year is warranted and needed to continue healthy balances moving forward.
and I couldn't agree with, you know, if you need it and you have to have it, you gotta find a way to fund it. I mean, that's obvious. I just, you know, when we talk about, I think there's a lot of taxpayers who look at using unfunded surplus as you said you were gonna use this money for my taxes to do this, and now you're gonna use it to do that. And I know the theory of, well, you know, we're still not gonna borrow that, so we're still, it's gonna come off tax rate anyway, but there's a lot of people who think, I'd rather have my money back. You go to a store, there's a refund, your hands out to get the refund. You know, at the end of it, so there's both sides to look at that as well.
Sorry.
There's different theories.
What's on Brent?
Would we, is anybody seriously considering refunding that money back to the tax? That's surplus.
If there was a way, I thought I could get the votes, I would vote for it.
Well, it is, you can put more towards you can put more of it, the unexpended fund surplus towards lowering the tax rate, which is what you would do.
Right.
But, I mean, you know, that's never been done. And
No, it's
that
actually.
leads to the high.
Well, that's wrong.
Hold on, let's just say that I'm not suggesting we do that. Suggesting we do the normal thing, which is put it into capital reserves. That's the normal.
And just for clarification purposes, you put on average, over the last 5 years, you put $370,000 every year.
Thank you.
On average, over the last 5 years towards the tax rate. That takes off 29 cents. So every year, the selectmen have voted to put
Every year.
$370,000 of the surplus towards the tax rate.
We also have a very healthy unexpended fund surplus.
And we will even more this year. Okay, we're gonna hit the 15% range. So that's why,
But that may not be
I mean, you know, to have that much to really,
Well, and that's why I'm proposing to use $450,000 of it to buy a fire truck, so we don't have to add 30 cents to the tax rate, we can buy it for free. Not for free, but for money already raised. I wish it was free, but
Feels like.
that money's not, if it's not
Paul,
elected, it's
Paul.
not that.
I hope when we get to the special warrant article, we're just gonna breeze through the fire truck.
Yeah. I would agree.
You know, I don't think, you know, if we have 1.5 million in CIP. Maybe the voters will approve another 450. So that's 2, and we're gonna add 1.2 million this year, and maybe a little bit more next year, so we're not gonna be. Making this, there's not a big hole in the budget. We're gonna have 3.5 million. Over the next 3 years
In capital reserve.
in capital reserve. I mean, we're gonna have enough going into the capital reserves.
we're only putting 1.2 in this year.
That's what I said.
Oh, I thought you said 1.5.
No, I said we have 1.5. You said we had 1.5 in
bank.
capital.
In the back.
Oh, in the bank for
Yeah.
those projects, correct, yes, correct. I thought you meant we were putting 1.5 in.
Al,
I'm a little surprised that within 6 months they decided to order a fire truck. I mean, I just went through this and we've been doing it for 3 years. Knowing that, I'm in favor of a new fire truck, I'm just surprised that the committee decided within 6 months to order a new fire truck. It's kind of short, and you're right about the increases. I just talked to Durasi from E1, and they're going up, what, 12%?
Well,
After April 13th.
Yeah, after first quarter, correct, yeah.
And we were gonna deal with him too. We were gonna buy an E1. And back in December, they were going up another 15%. So, but it's just, you know, we spent 3 years ordering a fire truck, not 6 months. Which is kind of shocking.
Sure, I mean, the fire department had a truck committee in which they reviewed their current fleet and they established what they were
But
looking for.
they should have known 3, 4, 5 years ago, this truck had to be replaced at this time, not just 6 months ago.
Well, the truck is due for replacement in 2025, but due to manufacturing delays, we need to sign in 23. So if we were doing this the way you had done it, then we probably would be planning it for the next 2 years for purchase in 25, but we don't have that opportunity. Because if we wait till 2025, we're not getting a truck until 2027 or 2028.
So Tom,
It wasn't just all of a sudden 6 months ago they decided, it was all of a sudden 6 months ago when they looked at the CIP to get updated pricing. That they were told you can no longer just order a fire truck and get it in 6 months. Now it's 2 to 3 years out. So that's what prompted it.
It's really
It's-
18 months. That's exactly what it is for a pumper,
Perfect.
I can tell you.
It's 2 years for us, because that's what they told us, just saying. So it was 6 months ago that they looked into getting accurate pricing, today's current pricing for the CIP. When they realized that it's not like it used to be. Post-COVID is very different than pre-COVID with almost everything, and this is one of them. That you can't just order a fire truck and have it next year. You have to order it and have it next 2 or 3 years. So that's what prompted it now.
I'm just trying to get back to what's the decision point we're trying to make here, do we have? I mean, what's more?
oh no, that,
well, the overall of this is how strongly does the budget committee recommend this after we're done?
Right.
Meaning when it goes to town meeting, is the
But
budget committee
recommending what?
recommending or not recommending? If we come down to it.
Capital
So
reserve.
I think we're getting on the fire truck and
oh no, the whole thing's part of it.
Right, now, my question comes back to, based on what Jim said, because I thought we were running into trouble over the next 3 years with the 3.59 million. That we do not have the funds for that. But what Jim just said is we do.
No, I mean, well, if we continue to. Right now, in the next 3 years, we have 10 projects that amount to 3.5. 10 projects out of the 107.
Right.
So I mean, we're not funding any of the other projects for the future. So these 10 projects are going to absorb 100% of the funding we put in for the next 2 years if we stay at the $1 million.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
all right. Jim, did it sound legit to you? Not legit, but does that sound,
I mean, I don't think the hole is as big as what's.
okay, all right, but I hear what you're saying there. Paul?
And there are other avenues to explore. That the town can explore to raise money such as impact fees.
I don't disagree.
Well, I've talked to Karina, and I've had conversations about this, and that's impact fees are something that you can look at, for example, even for a fire truck. So, you know, the funding, the way you bring the funds up. Raise the funds is varied. And if you don't know that you have the need, then you can't look at some of these other things. And I think that it sounds to me like maybe some of these other proposed future needs, you probably should be looking at things like impact fees maybe, or other ways of, you know, getting funds from, whether it's grants, impact fees, but I don't know what they could be, but I think we probably should explore those, but you need to know the urgency of the need before you can look at that. And that's,
Well, it sounds, I just, you know, you've got 110 projects, is that what you said? 107. And I guess where I'm going, yeah, impact fees, whatever you've got to do in the long run to alleviate these projects going on. That's, yeah, use all of that. But I don't think it's one of those where don't do this now so that we can explore these other things to fix what's later. You know,
no, I agree with that. And look, if you need the fire truck, you need the fire truck. I understand. I'm just saying that. You can't just have a fire every time you need something. I mean, it's just, we gotta be careful of that.
I don't disagree, Paul.
You know,
and
because
that's-
it skews everything up that way.
right, right. And that's the whole idea of CIP is so that you don't have to do this.
Exactly.
But CIP has had some challenges, as we see, over the funding over the last few years, which has brought us to this. And I think this is part of the fix, the beginning of the fix.
I mean, I don't think that it's had a whole lot of challenges to it. I mean, you know, when you talk to, sitting in those meetings, talking to the department heads, I mean, it's pretty interesting to hear them. When you ask them a question about something that you really need it, it's not like saying. You can't have it, so tell us why you need it. And, or they might say, you know, we could put this thing up for another couple of years because this is running really well. And they volunteer some of that information, so the CIP is not a hard and fast document, it's static, it moves up
Yeah,
and
it's a
down.
living-
There's no
it's a
tomorrow.
living-
Right.
You
Which
know?
is why we should have a nice top line on the CIP so we can cover it.
I'll ask one more question, then I think we'll move on. I'm just curious. The CIP meetings are not public meetings.
Oh, they are.
Yes, they
are.
They are, there's minutes, that's what I thought. They had to be.
Oh, yeah.
And they're noticed, there's an agenda and everything.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Usually starts in late July, early August, yeah, and we go through the month of
I
August.
was gonna say, I was like, how do you get that?
I thought you were looking at it one time, like, yeah,
I was.
Yeah.
I was, but for some reason, I've had some conversations that said it wasn't a noticed meeting.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And I'm gonna say, we had a procedures meeting.
We
that
we don't typically take public participation.
You don't have to, right,
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 that's-
but it is a
It's open to the public.
that makes sense there. Okay, yes,
How often do the CIP meet?
Well,
Just in the summer months.
twice a week,
And like 5 weeks or something.
5 weeks, 6 weeks.
So
Depends on how the department has, if you have the need for more information, that can spread itself out, you know.
So 10, 12 times annually, is that
maybe a little bit fewer than that, maybe 8.
8 to 10, I would say, yeah.
I would say
that's
probably,
fair.
yeah, 10 at the most, maybe.
okay,
And it's driven by the department heads on the information that's available.
okay, shall we move on?
Yes.
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 All right, we're down into specials.
Now for the real fun stuff, right?
Let's not make this too long.
Okay. I'm looking at this spreadsheet just because it's gonna be easier for me, just to identify so you can see what we're not including this year and then what we are including next year. And then if we have any questions on that one, that's fine. So the first 3 warrant articles were warrant articles last year that we took excess bond proceeds and put it back towards our principal payment. So those we don't need to do again this year. We voted on this last year. The 4th one is the highway block grant. This is standard every single year. The state gives us money, we vote to expend it, so we have the ability to expend it at any time. So that's pretty standard. Town clerk cemetery record software. So earlier in the year, the town clerk and the cemetery trustees did not see eye to eye on whether the town clerk should purchase a record retention software. Because the town clerk is an elected official and the cemetery trustees are elected officials, no one really governs over them other than themselves, right? So rather than try to play mediator and pick one side over the other, we felt like it was best if we brought this warrant article forward to the town meeting and let them vote on whether they felt it was necessary to buy the record retention software. So that's why you have that 10 grand in there. And both the cemetery trustees and the town clerk know that it would be its own independent warrant article, so. That is that. PD vehicles, new cruiser, so that went up slightly just because of the cost of vehicles in 2023. Last year, we were unable to buy a new Charger. They were unavailable at the time when we got funding for town meeting, so we ended up buying the pickup, which is a whatever it is. I don't know if it's a Tacoma or
I think it's a Dodge.
it's a Dodge.
Yeah. It's a Dodge.
Yeah. So we, this year they plan to buy a new Charger.
The pickup was going to be this coming year, but because we couldn't get the Charger, they swapped it. Pickup was available, the Charger wasn't, so they just swapped those.
So that is the price for a new cruiser. As you've heard us talk in the past, the collective bargaining agreement up is this year. This is an estimated figure. This is not a figure set in stone, so it is subject to change, but I wanted to at least get a placeholder in there for you so you all could see a rough number of what the cost figure would be.
This is a high rough number, is this, yeah. You think it will exceed this?
No. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping this is a worst case scenario.
I mean, so what's the offsetting revenue there for the collective bargaining, 100,000?
That's
line below.
that's right below it, Jim.
Did I read it wrong?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the resource.
Did I? Oh, that's a school resource.
So collecting bargaining would be for the first year of the new union contract or the new CBA agreement for 2023.
It's a 3-year contract.
It's a 3-year contract, that's year 1.
Yeah.
Underneath it is the SRO, School Resource Officer. So we were awarded a grant, the PD was awarded a grant to hire a school resource officer. The grant will cover $125,000 over a 3-year term. Chief Morris has met with the school board and school the superintendent of schools. The school board has voted unanimously to enter into a MOU with the town to do some cost sharing of the SRO position. The formula for that has yet to be defined.
Sharing with Woodstock.
Cost sharing with the school and the town. Town of Lincoln, Linwood School.
And you said there's a grant for this or?
We received $125,000 in a grant that would cover over 3 years.
It's not 125,000 per year, it's 125,000.
But 125 max. The first year they'll cover up to 75%. The second year they'll cover up to 50%, and the third year they'll cover 25%. And then the fourth year, the town has to assume 100% of the cost figures associated. But we're hoping in a MOU with the school that they will pay a portion of that employee's salary for the position and benefits.
So we
decided we needed one.
is there currently an SRO there?
There is not currently an SRO.
And the history of that is there was an
There was.
SRO, and then the school board decided they didn't want to pay for it anymore. Was that it?
I don't know the history.
What
I
happened?
do. The history is that our previous police chief made it literally difficult, like impossible, to continue that position at school. That is why.
There was money involved somewhere.
Yes, the school funded part of it, the town funded the rest. And
Okay.
the school funded the hours that the SRO spent at school, and our previous police chief consistently and constantly pulled that officer from the school, put him on town duties, in town, not at school. And the school consistently and constantly were getting ripped off because they were still having, per the agreement, to pay that salary. That's why it ended.
So this person is subordinate to the.
Police chief, correct. They are a licensed or
Yeah,
a
he's a
certified
police
police
officer.
officer, Lincoln officer.
We have to continue that, is there, in this grant, is there requirements to continue it?
For 4 years.
The 4th year.
Fourth years, it's a 4-year requirement. So the first 3 years, we have a staggered
Funding.
reimbursement, and then the
fourth
fourth year would be us.
Totally us.
Correct. Well, and the
with
school
cost sharing
share.
from the school.
And how many hours is there a requirement that the resource officer spends at the school?
Well, I don't think it's a requirement of the grant, but in our MOU discussions, we've talked about it would be 180 days at the school, and that is 300, essentially 50% of the year.
So
And
that's a day every year.
that they would be there every day the school's open.
And the rest of the year, when the school's not open, is they would be an additional officer on the police force.
You got it.
Cover vacations, et cetera, et cetera.
So it's he. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, the SRO position would be, the hours would be set to reflect, coming in late one day to stay for a dance, or taking a weekday off to go to homecoming all day Saturday, or something like that. It would be a 40-hour, based on a 40-hour week, but work around
The school schedule.
school schedule and extracurricular functions. Sorry,
So the same hours, it's just a matter of one.
correct.
I'm just trying to understand what his purpose is. Is it security?
No,
It's a school resource offer. It's community engagement in addition to having a presence on
Support.
campus. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to imagine what he does all day then. While the kids are in class.
I know the previous SRO, there were a couple of them that got sticky towards the end. Will was in forever. He was fantastic. There were a lot of kids that came to him, unfortunately, to report abuse, et cetera, et cetera. He was a lot of support when a kid got in trouble, helping them get out of trouble or navigate the probation period or join them at court, things like that. And there are quite a few kids, I can name 3 of them off the top of my head, that were headed down the wrong path that he literally turned and are good upstanding citizens. That's one of the biggest roles of the SRO, in my opinion. in the
I've
school.
seen them, they build relationships.
Absolutely, 100%.
And they would pull kids out of class time to work with them individually.
Yeah, when needed, yeah.
So from a money standpoint, what I'm seeing is it's 100,000 and it's traded off with that, but that's just for the salary, correct?
Salary and benefits.
Salary and benefits. okay.
Correct, it's the whole
What is
package.
the cost per year for an SRO?
We're projecting it at $120,000 for salary and benefits for year 1.
So the salary and benefits all come from the town.
Well, they would be a town of Lincoln employee, so
Gross
we would
budget.
have to gross appropriate, that's
Gross appropriate,
municipal
yeah.
budget law.
Yeah.
So we gotta gross appropriate for the whole thing, whether or not we get 99.9%.
So it's gonna cost us 400,000 for this SRO for 4 years,
Minus 125,
Yeah,
And
sure,
we're gonna
minus
do what?
125, so
minus 125.
Yeah.
minus whatever the school could.
minus whatever the school contributes, correct?
And we have no idea how much school's gonna contribute.
Hopefully
Not
by the end of the week.
Yeah, we'll hopefully know soon, because they also would have to put it on their warrant.
The
for
goal
their
is to get
as
it
well.
prior to our budget hearing.
It'd be nice to have it prior to the budget committee voting on
Agreed.
the
Agreed,
warrant article.
We're working on it.
yeah,
So, I mean, but the schools ourselves, we're paying money, I mean, part of it comes from Woodstock, I understand, but
Yeah, yeah.
the
We're all under
majority
the
is.
same umbrella, correct,
So
yeah,
it's not,
whether it's
it's
one
not like it's
pocket
found
or.
money just because it's coming from the school, it's still coming.
Well, I mean, Jim raises a good question, so I mean, if it's. So the town of Lincoln budgets for it. And those, when the school's open, it's, the SRO is there, but when the school's closed. Will the officer be staying in Lincoln or be shared with Woodstock because it's
No.
budgeted that way?
Lincoln employee, stays in Lincoln.
Jim,
It's 120,000 for 180 days or the whole year.
That's for the whole year.
So he's gonna be a regular police
He's
officer.
gonna be a regular police officer that spends his 180 days and his hours, 180 of those days at the school. The other 185 will be on duty as a Lincoln police officer.
We have to buy another cruiser.
No. not yet.
but the thing in this is there is another half of a police officer being added to the force.
Correct.
Right.
The thought and the goal with the officer in the summertime predominantly, or on busy like holiday weeks, Christmas week when school is off and such. Will the summertime cover a lot of vacation time that they scramble and struggle with now. So
So that's the SRO.
Moving on.
Moving on, lease purchase of the fire truck. I don't think we need to beat this horse out anymore.
Talk about that.
I think we'll lose that question.
Okay, these are the big ones now coming up. Okay. Route 3 water main upgrades. We all know that the Route 3 water main is in need of repair. It's relatively old. We know that's coming down the line. We contracted with an engineering firm this year, Weston Sampson, to do an investigative kind of summary of what it would take to upgrade from Boyce Brook to the Flume. And they came in at a construction estimate, including engineering, at 2.2 million. So when we brought this forward to the board and the board discussed having two avenues to fund that project, one would be to take out a bond to do the whole thing, a bond for the 2.2. The other alternative would be to just fund the engineering portion this year, which comes in because we asked them for that estimate as well to try to break up the two. The estimate for the engineering was 325,000. So I think it's the board's intention to put the bond article first in hopes that that will pass. If that does not pass, then the warrant article for just the engineering would then be moved forward. If the bond article passes, obviously, then the additional warrant article gets taken.
May I just add that if the bond itself for 2.2 is voted on and approved at town meeting, then we can do the engineering in 23, get the bid out prior to December 31st, and have a contractor in place to do this job in 2024. If we only bond the engineering, then engineering will take place in 2023. Then we'll have to come to town meeting in 24 to get the money, and then that job won't happen until 2025. So not getting that bond this year puts us out an additional year. And how many breaks did he have this year? Do you have 4?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, 2022, we had 4
Yeah, I was gonna say at
breaks
least
in
three.
that line, I think it was. One of them was extremely difficult to find and fix. It was literally under an electric vault. Yeah, thank you.
Jim?
We just did the Route 3 water line in 2004, 2005. Is this,
Not from Boyce Brook
Only two,
to
right.
the water tank just before the flood. That part. That
This
was
was
done.
just that one part of Route 3?
Correct.
Okay.
This is now the other part.
Yeah, correct.
So your plan is to put both of these bonds before the voters?
If.
If
um,
the 2.2 fails, then we'll go for the 325,
If the
engineering.
Separate election.
separate.
Yeah. so I
And
was
if the
gonna say-
2.2 passes, then we will just skip over the 325 and not do
Yeah,
it.
if 2.2 passes, then we don't vote on the
So
325.
2.2 includes the engineering.
Correct,
Correct.
correct. It's one or the other.
Oh, God.
At different moments in time.
Correct.
Yes, so the 2.2 will go first. If that passes, then we'll skip over the 325. If the
Yeah.
2.2 fails, then we'll vote on the 325.
I just, it could be perceived by some people as an either or, and some may go for the lesser. So, yeah, just
We'll have
make
to
sure whenever.
Yeah, we'll
it's
have to-
voting on it, it's.
do a
You
good job
can't
explaining.
sell it that if they vote for the 2.2, they'll save 325,000? Can't sell it that way.
Well.
I'm just kidding.
That would be a little smoke and mirrors to be deceiving. So that's the water main. things.
Paul?
So I have a couple questions. How do we get there so fast? How do we get to a point where a water line's we got to raise $2.2 million in 1 year? It's just like the fire truck. That's one question. The other comment I have is that it's probably not that, we have some bonds that are coming, that are maturing. How many do we have? 1 or 2?
2 this year,
We have
correct?
we have two this year that were our last, we extinguished one last year, so technically we'll have 3 by the end of 23 that we have gotten rid of in the last.
And so those monies can be used to offset something. So it's not gonna be a real,
Correct.
Correct.
I guess the question is taxation wise, what's the difference gonna be that you're looking for versus what's retired?
I can tell you that right now, if you'd like me to. So the Route 3 water main, if we were to bond the $2.2 million over 10 years. Our average payment would be $220,000 a year plus interest. That's 17 cents per thousand. On a $300,000 home, that's 51 cents. If we look at our long-term debt schedule, you will be able to see that. Next year, in 23, we are getting rid of a $105,000 payment and also a $63,000 payment. So that's $165,000 that would pretty much absorb the majority of this fund.
So the water line replacement would almost equal what we're currently paying for bond debt for those 3 projects.
For the two projects that we'll get rid of this year.
Is there any other way of getting money to help pay for this through impact fees or anything else?
Well, I think impact fees.
Water tank.
Yeah, I mean, impact fees is something that the planning board has to adopt, and it doesn't happen overnight. You gotta establish guidelines. So yes, I mean, potentially in the
Well,
future.
impact
yeah.
fees, and there's
We also have water and sewer tap fees, but
There's-
we know which is an impact fee, but
that sort of like, just like a bedroom fee or the water tap, fee, yeah. But I mean, there's also, isn't the government doing something with water?
oh, yeah, I mean,
as
there's
far as bonds and
grants
stuff
out.
like that,
there's
grants and stuff like that,
grants
so-
out there,
I
but
mean, I would hate to see us spending taxpayers' money. If it's all taxpayers,
Yeah.
if you could get it from, if you could get it from the federal government and it required you just waiting another year. To be able to do the process of writing a grant, or to be able to look at impact fees or something like that. Those are the types of things that I look at. To help offset some of the costs to the taxpayers if they're available.
yeah, I mean, that makes
I mean,
total sense.
and I know the needs there, it's like the fire truck, but I mean, we have to look at. What's the best way of raising the money to pay for that? Are there other alternative sources to get that? Just like you do in your own home, you know?
Right, and I don't disagree, Paul, but I will say this, that if we put all our eggs in the basket that we'll get a grant to pay for this and this project, and that falls through, and we don't get awarded the grants, then this project is another year behind and that cost price goes up. The other thing is, when we bond money, it's up to that amount, so if we don't have to bond the money in April, we're not spending this money until we get into construction, that's when the majority of this money is gonna be spent, so we could bond this money the following year, as long as we had enough money for engineering, we don't have to take out the bond on March 15th. We could wait until September. As long as we have bond authority, we can take up to that amount at any time.
Right, Cindy,
Because this involves the water system, does the opportunity to get a grant depend on metering? Will that impact our ability to get a grant?
there's
A lot of them do. I mean, that is,
Yeah.
yes, I mean, there are grants that we could qualify for. Will it be a $2.2 million grant?
Right.
I wouldn't, I'm not a betting gal, but I don't know if I put my money on that. I mean, we do look for grants. I mean, this year alone, we brought in $500,000. It's not like we are just like, oh, grants, we don't need that money, you know, we will try to, make this the most cost effective as possible, but we ran into a couple issues this year in that section of pipe, and we said, now's the time to investigate.
Last few years. Yeah.
So once we get bonding authority, how long does that? Before it lapses?
Bonding authority is good for,
Once we don't have
once
to
you
get
bond-
5 years to issue the bond, to take out the bonds.
you can take out the bond. I mean, DRA probably doesn't like that, but
Right. I'm
But
just
as long as you
hypothetical.
have bond authority, you could take it the following year, as long as you have
Okay.
authority to,
In other words, we can get satisfactory bids, or we could still.
we can
wait.
still wait, correct, if the bids came in at 4 million versus 2 million, we'd say we're not doing this project right now. Yeah.
So is there a way to?
1 second, OJ?
I'm just gonna point out that the bond that was retired this year, and then the two that are coming up. Total $3.5 million of original debt that was taken out that's gonna be gone away. So this at 2.2 is just a portion of that. The second thing is that if we pass the bond this year, like we said, we're not gonna. That's highly unlikely we're gonna get it engineered, designed, approved by the state, has a big approval.
DOT has to-
It's just not gonna happen this year
Right.
realistically.
Really?
But it will put us in line to get it done next year. And there's some cost savings to that, because one of the things that we're gonna have to do is cross the exit 34A exit ramp with our pipe. If we do that just prior to when they're scheduled to repave that exit ramp, we can cut their asphalt and dig a hole. If we wait a year, we're gonna drill underneath it, a
Or.
board for a
Right.
12-inch
Right.
pipe going through there, okay? There's just some cost savings beyond inflation that we will be able to take advantage of by doing it this year versus putting it off another whole calendar year.
Sure. Well,
I mean, I think that those impact fees may, whether they would help this project or not. I don't know, but I think that's something, and I don't know where the planning board gets the help to look at those types of things. But, you know, considering all the projects that you're talking about, things like that.
Well, I think that's a conversation you as a planning board member need to have with the planning board.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's not just, wait a minute, it's not just the planning board, it's, to me, it's a
The
thing where the
planning board
board.
has to adopt the
No, I
ordinance.
understand that, but there's a thing that goes along with that. Where the board of selectmen say, we have needs, these are what we see as our needs,
Sure.
these are what we see as our future needs, and. You know, maybe you should be looking at some of those, you don't agree with that.
It's not that I agree or disagree. That's not how it works. An impact fee is when a project comes before the planning board.
Prior to
Town
approval.
services do they
Correct,
impact,
correct,
okay?
I understand that.
There's a water line going up Route 3 that's been there for 60 years. Maybe more, I don't know. That no development here is gonna have an impact on. Now, if someone were to build up at the flume and we needed a 12-inch pipe instead of an 8-inch pipe, there's an impact fee.
Well, does it service the whole, it only services the tank up there, only services Route 3, and
It only services from the flume down to Woodwards.
that's it.
That's it.
Mhm.
Doesn't even come to my house.
Darn it, there's
That's what I was
a-
thinking of, the impact.
No, the impact has to be the impact of the development. It requires the town to do something.
Right.
And the planning board.
Fire truck, but the fire truck could be, issues like fire trucks. could
If,
be.
If we had a hotel that needed a ladder truck,
if it needed a higher ladder truck.
Right.
some
Or a
people-
bumper hook onto it, or,
It has to impact the town.
I
It can't be
understand
something that we're gonna replace anyway, and let's push the burden onto them. It has to be something that we now have to do. Okay, just as long as we're in the right
No,
lane
no,
here,
no.
conversation.
I got you, and I wasn't saying it's gonna be just for the water, but I mean,
So-
listen to what Brenda said about all these other different projects.
So it's not the board coming to the planning board and saying this is what we need. It's the planning board coming to the town saying, does this project influence, require an improvement in the sewer or the water or a new fire truck? Does this project that we want to impact fee on impact anything?
Does the planning board have the ability to just assess an impact fee? Based upon, or do they have to adopt certain rules and
Yes,
regulations
they have to
prior to
you have to adopt an impact fee. So one of the,
impact fee?
this is
ordinance?
not a budget committee.
no, yeah.
Oh, come on.
But-
it's even a budget committee.
Yes, yeah, you have to have a
Yes.
CIP plan, which we have,
We do.
and you have to adopt a impact fee ordinance.
Impact fee, okay, that's all questions I have.
But we can, if some project comes and we have to like add a street light to an intersection, we can assess it as action fee for that one
For
project.
that one project, but if
We
you
just
want to
can't-
create a fund for impact fees that for future improvements, you have to have an impact fee ordinance.
Now, also, can a town assess exaction fees for certain projects within certain areas? By lieu of additional taxation?
This is a
But I
planning
thought-
board discussion.
Yeah, really.
No, this is a budget question, because I know at one time we were talking about like at Loom. The homeowners up there,
Can you give a quick answer?
yeah,
Yes, we can. There's lots of rules around it and a lot of the things that we've looked at in the past have not been applicable to that, to the laws, the rules that we have. So to
So
pull it out. of the
ways to get
budget
money,
discussion, we can Get into in depth on what those rules are. in planning.
It's essentially like you're creating a village, like
It's a village.
it's a village district
Tax
district that has a
incremental.
different tax rate, like Campton had 3 of them.
trying to find some other ways to get.
I know.
Well, that's what I get out of this, as far as the knowledge of that does help us, because you're not gonna have an impact fee to get $2.2 million. That's what came out of that. It ain't happening.
Ain't happening.
So, and in a lot of these things, and you said, we don't want them to go on, maybe they step over the bound, but there's. Just like select board meetings, just like planning board, CIP meetings, all that information does help us
Make this.
prepare a budget. So that's why we have this, but I understand too.
Yeah,
All right, moving on. This is the last cost item. So new police and fire, not fire anymore. Last year at town meeting, we raised and appropriated $40,000 to do a conceptual design. We had 40 grand in the bank already. So we did a conceptual design for a new police fire station after we got the cost figures for a combined police fire station, which came in at $24 million. We realized that we had to go back to the drawing board.
My 13 was off.
Yeah, so your 13 was up. So we realized that we needed to downsize and reevaluate, kind of pivot what we were doing and focus on the department with the greatest need, and that department is the police department. So we met with the architects and asked them to redesign the building with some of the input from the building committee, some of the input from the selectmen with the basements and all that kind of other stuff. And so now we are at a cost estimate of $8.5 million. And that is a conservative estimate, but that's what we're rolling with. Well, it's not really a conservative estimate. I don't know why I said that, but I think it's gonna be more in the higher than that, but we're gonna make them.
So it's,
Construction costs came in at 8.5. There was a lot of add-ons, site stuff, building furnishings, those type of things that we thought we could probably reduce the cost to. So the selectmen have decided to move forward with an 8.5 million. This would be a bond. Again, this would be for a town meeting to decide if they wanted to take out a bond and that, at that, cost figure. I did some quick math, 8.5 million over 20 years is a $425,000 payment a year. Let's say 25 in interest, we're going at 450. That's 36 cents per thousand. That would be affected by the tax rate on a $300,000 home. That's $108. Similar to the Route 3 water main, if the first warrant article fails for the total 8.5 million, then we are asking the town to fund the engineering and construction design phase to get us through bid at the rate of $400,000.
so. Obviously, the police station, you're going with the design you have in your, and because of the way it was presented to the board, it was. They could build half of it, the police half, and then join the fire half on it. So my second question is. Is the board of selectmen supporting this?
They're supporting putting it on the warrant. They haven't voted on whether they.
Obviously, if they're gonna put it on the warrant, they must support it.
They are
It's not
supportive of the
Christmas.
town, they're supportive of the town voting on it.
This is
Well,
what's
no, I
recommended.
mean,
This is what's
And the
recommended
reason,
to us.
I'm asking is because Tammy said that if it was. More than.
Yeah.
X amount of money, she wasn't gonna
Not what I
support it.
said.
Oh, Jack. It was not speaking in favor of it. I know OJ, I think he was in favor of it, but I mean. It seems to me that when it goes on, it has to have a recommend or not recommend by the board of selectmen. So if two of the board of selectmen are staying with what they originally said, then how can it go on?
They are recommending putting it on the warrant. Tammy said at the last meeting, if you watch the recording, she said, I recommend putting it on the warrant. I don't know if I'll vote for it at town meeting.
But you have to have
The
And the word-
selectmen are recommending it on the warrant.
in the wording on the warrant. it
Yes.
says the
The
board of
selectmen
selectmen recommend, not
Yes.
recommend this
Sure.
article.
Yes.
So, you know, I mean, let's not split hairs here. I'm just asking because all the way through this, that's the way it's been. Now we're down to let's vote and it's. Things, you know,
Well, people can say
it
it's
seems
not.
like a lot of money. It's a lot of money for one town group. If you were looking at two towns, you might. For me, I might look a little harder at it, but for one town, I think you're gonna have a tough sell.
I don't disagree. I don't think it's gonna be an easy road to go down, but I do think that our police department is bursting at the seams. And I think going from a $24 million project to an $8 million project is more feasible and realistic when you look at other communities and what they're proposing. Other schools, $14 million additions, you know, like it's the cost of construction in 2024.
But
Is
you're
really
looking,
when we're gonna look at it.
you're looking at a building that's gonna have a proposed addition, it's being designed one half over here and one half later. I go to Plymouth, New Hampshire and see a little wooden structure that they got their police in and think, you know, it's bigger than what Lincoln has, but it's not gonna cost you $8.5 million.
Well,
So, I mean, you know, if you're just looking to just house the police and you don't know when you're gonna move the fire department, or if you're gonna move the fire department. Or if you're gonna join on with another town, it just seems.
sure.
But we don't
A
know
lot
it
of money.
didn't cost them 8.5 million.
Right.
We
What's
don't
that?
know, we don't know that didn't cost them 8.5 million.
and
We don't know what it cost them in Plymouth.
It didn't cost them 8.5.
We don't know
I'll
that.
tell you that Bristol is doing. Bristol just had to go back at town meeting this year and raise more money because the year before they raised 5 million. And then with today's construction costs, they were 2 million short. So in 2022, they went back to the town and asked
We're
for
getting on the building now.
2 more million, and it's a $7 million project just for their police, and it's a cookie cutter, modular, put together police station. So we're talking about 8.5.
Anybody that's
a year
building
later.
now, anybody that's building now, constructing now.
Mhm.
It has no brains or a lot of money. Because
Or no choice.
The
Or no
cost-
choice.
the cost is just,
Yeah, whatever. There's a lot of building going on. There's a lot of different prices of lumber and.
There's a difference between commercial building and government building, they're making money, but it is a bad time to build something. But you can't, I mean, the decision has to be whether it's necessary.
That's where we are. And the last one.
I don't.
Oh,
I can't make it. more-
I can't call on you. I can't see. your name.
I can't make any more motions, so someone else does.
You can, one to adjourn.
I can't, my name's on it. I'm going to fix it.
All right, anything
No,
else?
I got it.
Just leave.
Anything else?
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Second discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We're all done. And, oh, I guess I can say this is good scheduling. Is, we have Thursday, which we make up the snow day, and then we have the 31st. And I didn't look at the schedule today. Is 31st the scheduled meeting?
No,
No, it's
Oh.
not.
the
All right.
26th and then the second is the public hearing.
Public hearing, but we have to present the people with an approved budget, a recommended budget. So we have to vote on all of these things. And remember, that's sort of an arduous task.
Yes.
So we used to split it and do 13 and 13, so we can do the whole thing in one night.
So Tuesday, the 31st.
Well, no.
Just
We could do it, we could do 13 the night of the public hearing, is that what you're saying? We do 13 at next week, and then 13.
Don't try to do them all. We did, one time we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a site
But
plan.
we have a bond hearing prior to your meeting,
I understand.
so.
Yes, you do. So again, I'm looking for how
No, I don't
committee
agree.
wants to do it. I'm not deciding. So I'm just saying,
Just a reminder.
I did it one time right before the public hearing, and it was painful.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's painful whenever I do it,
Yeah.
but it was doubly painful. So we can we can vote on half of these on Thursday,
This Thursday.
this Thursday,
Yep.
and then the other half
On the second,
on the second.
after the public
But
hearing.
why wouldn't you utilize next Tuesday?
That's the other option.
Just because it's not on our schedule doesn't mean you can't schedule a meeting.
That's the other option. I would actually, I'd rather do it next Tuesday.
I would
myself.
I would too.
Yeah, all right,
I would,
all right, and we don't have to have a motion. How's everybody feel about doing it next Tuesday?
yes.
Just tell you that I'm unavailable in person next Tuesday, but I can come on via Zoom. I'm not voting, so.
No, let's.
Yeah, okay, that's all right.
Okay.
We could do the whole thing on Tuesday, because that would be our only focus.
Our only focus.
Yeah, just
Okay, if you're good
just
with that.
do the
Yep.
police on Thursday
Okay.
and focus on the voting, the recommendation.
Cemetery trustees coming Thursday.
They will,
Yeah.
they'll either Zoom in or they'll be here.
May I also remind you that need to be put on the ballot to go see Kristen and we'll get your name on there.
What is it
Everybody
that's
has their
on the
papers.
31st?
Next Friday is the last day.
Next, so a week from Friday is the last day.
It started.
Let's start.
So Monday, yesterday. and it
No,
goes.
it's still here.
We're coming on Tuesday.
31st.
I adjourn.
Okay,
Don't forget. to-
well, you could have kept going.
That's where I'm going.
I'm parked behind some.
Yeah, check
boy,
the account.
Before it, it may be. her.
Does everybody know who's up, who those that are up, you know, that you're?
Yes, they have their paperwork.
The new that were appointed this year will have to get their name on the ballot.
They have their paperwork.
Perfect.
Let's see how much they really do.